Okay, I've got a location started for the grounding block I want to install. I already pre-drilled one hole there, and I'm going to go over and put the grounding block in, attach it with one screw, and then use the grounding block itself as a guide for where to drill the other hole. Really been a bit of a frustration because I realized that I neglected to put a hot wire with ignition on to activate my fan relays. And in doing that, I went down the rabbit hole of all the other things that need to be connected, and there's a lot, and the places that they need to connect are far away, let's say. I need to put the wires for the triggers for the relays for the fans all the way back into the last empty ignition on fused slot that I have. When I added the relay to turn that extra fuse box on when the ignition comes on, there were 4 things in it, and I think the air conditioner took up one, the what else did I connect there? I put a separate one for a accessory plug. I want to plug in a charger for a cell phone or a GPS or something like that, and I don't want to have it be on permanently, so I wired that to what used to be the cigarette lighter in this car, and another thing I hooked into that escapes me right now what it was. But at any rate, there was a 4-slot fuse panel that I put in, activated by the ignition on switch, and I want these fan relays activated by the ignition on switch as well. So there is one more slot available for that. So I have to run the trigger wires from these relays all the way back into the passenger compartment right near the it's actually, I've got it under the console. So now that I've got this in place, I can take my drill and put another hole here, and I know it'll be accurate. I'll just put the other screw in that, and I'll be able to wire the grounds for the fans, and I'll be able to put the of course the ground wire from the other grounding block to this grounding block. So I'm going to put in the screw, not going to video it, to hold that in place, and then I'll start with the fan grounds. Okay, I'm going to put the right hand fan, the passenger side, on the first grounding stud. Not that it makes much of a difference. I'm just trying to keep the cables so that I know which one's which. So there will be, I think all the grounds I need over here are the two fans and then one for the trinary switch on the air conditioning system. So I think I'll only have to put one ground per stud. And I've got that one labeled as right, if you watch the other video, because I want that to come on first, because it is behind the transmission cooler and behind at least part of the air conditioning condenser, evaporator, whatever that is there. Off the top of my head, I've forgotten since it's been a while since I've worked with it. But I've got two hot wires on these, or what need to be supplying power to the fans on here, and those will come off of the relays. But the problem I've been dealing with is I'm trying to figure out how best to lay this out, because the cables they gave you, seriously, I could have mounted the control, you know, the CD ignition and such in the trunk. They're that long. I'm trying to, I don't want to have to cut into them and splice all the wires in them to make them short. I'm trying to figure the best way to route them so that I don't have too much excess that's sloppy. So there's the two fans. And now I have to figure out, see if I can try to explain here why this is so doggone difficult. I mean, it won't take long to wire it once I decide where I want to run the wires. But so I've got two orange wires that are power on, powered by the ignition switch, that need to run across the back here, and I found a place to put in, go into the passenger compartment, pretty close to where I need to be, right over there. Let's see if I've got where I was pointing to in the frame. Yeah, probably do. In addition to that, and here's where it gets to where you start to struggle with where do I run these wires, because I have over on this side a tack wire that goes to the electronic tack in the dashboard. There's another wire, another brown wire, that I can't find right off the top of my head here, but it comes from the electronic controls for the transmission, because it wants to know how fast the engine's going so it knows when to shift. On top of that, then there's a tack signal that comes from this whole sniper system that's in this bundle of cables right here. It's this dark brown one. Okay, here's the one from the transmission. So those need to be wired together, all three of those. But in addition, coming out of this cable, there are two trigger wires attached to the sniper that will cause the fans to kick on by grounding out the trigger circuit and closing the connection between the battery and the fan on the relay here. So these two wires want to connect over here, and the brown one wants to connect to this tack circuits over here. So number one, I've got to figure out how long to make this I think what I might do is put in my own wire loom that will contain the orange wires from the relays to go over to get power from the interior. And it will also contain this brown wire to go over to the tack signal. And then it will contain the ground wire coming back to connect these two wiring, two grounding blocks. I also need to connect these live feeds. One comes out of the main harness for sniper. The other comes out of the harness connected to the Hyperspark distributor. And there's another one. Where did it go? Can't even find the thing now. There it is. So The problem with this one is this red one needs to be connected to the switched ignition source, which for the sniper system, I'm using the wire that was connected to the HEI distributor that was in the car. Because I know that's on when it's cranking. So that's a requirement for it to start. So I know that the ones that are connected to Sniper or the CD ignition or the Hyperspark distributor, they all have to be connected to this. But here's the problem, that this red wire needs connected over here. This white wire needs connected to a white wire from this harness here. So it's confusing. You have to spend a lot of time planning, probably more time planning than I will actually making the connections. And as I was talking there, I'm wondering if I can use the wire loom from this connector to run all that other stuff over, or whether it'd be easier to run my plastic ones. So I think there's going to be some more thinking before I actually start cutting wires here and running wires, you know, where I want them. So it's trying to do this somewhat neat. There's also going to be a wire that goes, this blue wire goes to the air conditioner trinary switch. So there's going to be at least 3 wires between where these relays are, because you got 2 power wires for the fan and then the trinary switch going that way. So I'm going to study it some more and see where I want this thing. Some of these wires in here are not used, and one of them is actually to ground out the trinary switch. It connects to the trinary switch and it kicks on the fan when the air conditioner is turned on, whether the engine needs it or not, because the air conditioner needs it. So I'm going to do some more thinking. I really wish they had given me wires that were not this doggone long, because in some ways it'd be easier to just extend the wires you need to extend than try to hide all this excess cable. Now, the wires from the relays for the fan, I'm just going to cut those to the length I need. That's not an issue at all. It's these ones that are attached to these connectors that are 8 feet long and need to be a foot. So I'll be back once I've decided to actually start doing something. Okay, I'm trying to find out which of my relays is going to be number 1. So what I've already done is tested the one that's closer to the firewall of the car by taking this off of the relay out and then setting my ohm meter to resistance and touching that and touching my grounding block, and it still shows no continuity. Well, I had already done the first fuse in the back there where, oh, by the way, I connected the positive and the negative terminals that are going to go on the top of the battery that have all these connections for all these circuits I put in. And I already tested the first one and found out that it didn't have continuity, and then I realized I don't have fuses in it. So I put a fuse in the first one, the first fuse in the back here, and I tested it and I still didn't have continuity. So it's possible that the first fuse is for the front relay here. So I'm going to try this again, connecting to the yellow line. And I still don't show continuity. That's not good. You should have continuity between that because all those fuse blocks are connected. Maybe one of those self-soldering joints that I did didn't work. So I guess there's some more investigation to go on here. I'll take my meter to the back and see if I can figure out why I don't have continuity all the way. Okay, so what I found out is those fuses are very difficult to get into that inline fuse holder that I've got wired up near the battery. I took my ohm meter and I checked continuity between all of the grounding blocks, and then I went back after they all tested good. I went back and I pulled the fuse out, and it pulled out easily, which was kind of a trigger in my mind. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but it's got a tone for continuity. So as soon as I find my, so I have continuity, and that is the first fuse in the fuse box, and it's the relay that is closest to the firewall. So that's going to be number one, which I will call the right hand side, which is the one that I am going to hook up first. So I think what I'm going to do, given how hard it was to get that fuse in there, is just make sure that I get the fuse in for the second one, and you know, just I'll test that when I fire it up, and I would expect it to come on, because once I get the fuse in properly, I had to take and unmount the cable from the back wall of the battery compartment so that I could get that in, so I could see what I was doing. So that made it a little difficult, but I think we're good now. I know that the first one should work. So I'm going to hook the relay back up. I'm going to put fuses in the rest of those fuse holders there, so that I can know that they're in correctly before I mount that back on the back side of the box. So it's getting kind of late, and I'm probably going to call it quits for the day fairly soon here, but that's what I'm going to be doing. But I will tell you about what I have decided here. This cable goes to the sniper, and it has all of these. These were in a sheath. And I decided that several of these aren't going to be used, but 3 of them will be used right here close. It'll be the 2 relays for the fans, and it'll be the trinary switch for the air conditioner. And then 2 of them have to be connected to this other cable here. And not sure exactly how I'm going to do that yet, because one option is to just cut this connector off, because one of the wires has to be connected to this, the white wire, and the red wire is the power wire, which needs to be connected over there. So even if I run this entire cable all the way over there, I'm going to have to bring a wire back here, or from here to there, to connect up that wire. So I may just cut that one and make it shorter, because there's just way too much wire here for what's necessary to make it work. Okay, that's going to be it for this video. I'll check back when I'm about to do some of that stuff.